In a hall full of laughter, gold, and empty smiles, no one noticed the deaf girl sitting alone, until a little black girl raised her hands and spoke in silence. The grand ballroom shimmered under chandeliers worth more than houses. Laughter bounced off marble. Floors as waiters in white gloves, circled with silver trays. But in one corner, away from the music and the pride, sat a small girl, no older than 7, her eyes wide yet distant. She couldn't hear the violins or the applause. She couldn't join the jokes. The billionaire's daughter, deaf since birth, lived in a world where every sound was a secret. The guests smiled at her father but avoided her gaze. To them she was fragile, untouchable, invisible. Even the billionaire, dressed in his tailored black tuxedo, tried to mask the sorrow behind his proud smile. He had everything a man could buy, except the one thing that mattered most: connection. Then, through the crowd of polished shoes and perfect manners, came a small figure, barefoot, wearing a faded yellow dress, her skin glowing deep brown under the ballroom light. The black janitor's daughter, just 6 years old, clutching a worn ribbon she'd found near the buffet. Her father worked quietly in the back, unseen by the elite. She wasn't supposed to be here. But fate doesn't ask permission. She stopped when she saw the billionaire's daughter alone. Their eyes met. For a heartbeat, the noise of the party faded, as if the world itself was holding its breath. The little girl tilted her head. Then slowly she raised her hands and began to move them. Each motion was soft, deliberate, a message written in silence. The billionaire's daughter froze, then her lips parted in disbelief. Someone was speaking her language. Gasps rippled through the nearby guests. Forks paused midair. The 2 girls, one born into wealth, the other into struggle, communicated without a single sound. The deaf girl smiled, her first real smile in years, as tears welled in her father's eyes across the room. The crowd didn't know what they were witnessing. A miracle without words. The janitor's daughter didn't know sign language perfectly, but her gestures carried something far greater than accuracy: heart. The billionaire took a step forward, stunned. The music had stopped. Every guest turned to see a scene that shattered every boundary of class and color. And in that silent moment, one truth echoed louder than the orchestra ever could. Sometimes the loudest voices come from those who have been silenced the longest. The ballroom, once filled with chatter and champagne, now stood frozen. Every eye followed the little black girl whose hands danced in silence, breaking through walls that words could never reach. The billionaire's daughter, her face glowing beneath the crystal lights, began to laugh, not mockingly, but with a kind of pure joy the world had denied her. Her father, a man who had built empires, crushed rivals, and ruled boardrooms, suddenly felt small. His tailored tuxedo, his fortune, his fame, none of it mattered now. What he saw before him wasn't just 2 children communicating, it was a bridge between worlds. He stepped forward slowly, the echo of his polished shoes the only sound left in the vast hall. Guests whispered, uncertain whether to stop him or stay silent. But the billionaire wasn't thinking of appearances anymore. For the first time in years, he wasn't a businessman. He was just a father watching his daughter be seen. As he approached, the janitor, a man in his mid-40s with rough, calloused hands and tired eyes, froze near the doorway. His heart pounded. He hadn't realized his little girl had wandered into the ballroom. He wanted to pull her back, to protect her from the judgment of the rich. But then, he saw the billionaire's daughter smiling. He saw his own daughter's hands still moving, fearless and kind, and he stopped. The billionaire knelt down beside his daughter, tears welling in his sharp blue eyes. His voice cracked as he whispered, "Who taught you that?" The deaf girl pointed, not to a teacher, not to a doctor, but to the little black girl standing before her. The janitor's daughter, 6 years old, standing barefoot on marble floors worth more than her father's lifetime earnings. A ripple of shame moved through the room. The same guests who had ignored the billionaire's daughter now looked at the janitor's child as if she were made of gold. The silence was no longer awkward, it was reverent. The billionaire rose to his feet, turning toward the janitor at the edge of the room. The air grew heavy as their eyes met. The powerful man and the humble worker, Two fathers bound by something neither of them expected. With slow steps, the billionaire crossed the hall. Guest stepped aside. He stopped in front of the janitor, whose hands were trembling as he tried to speak. But the billionaire didn't let him. He reached out, placing a hand on his shoulder. "Your daughter just gave mine what all my money couldn't buy," he said softly. "A friend." The janitor lowered his head, fighting tears. The crowd, once blind to both of them, began to applaud, not out of pity but out of awe. And somewhere in that applause, the billionaire's daughter tugged her new friend's sleeve. She handed her something small, a silver bracelet, from her wrist, and signed one word with trembling hands: "Thank you." That night, under the shimmer of chandeliers, no one saw a janitor or a billionaire. They saw two fathers and two little girls. One moment of kindness rewriting what the world thought it knew about worth. Because sometimes the smallest act can silence the loudest room. The applause faded. But the moment didn't. The billionaire stood there, still, silent, as if the world had stopped moving around him. The orchestra had fallen quiet, the glasses of champagne untouched. For once, nobody dared to speak. He looked down at the little girl who had changed. Everything. The janitor's daughter, standing, barefoot on cold marble floors, clutching the silver bracelet like it was treasure. Her small eyes reflected the glow of 1,000 chandeliers, but her heart shone brighter than them all. The billionaire drew a deep breath, then turned to the crowd. His voice, once the symbol of command, now trembled with humility. "Tonight," he said, "we all witnessed something money could never buy. We saw compassion from a child who owns nothing but gave everything." The guests shifted uncomfortably. The same people who had laughed at the janitor now avoided his gaze. Guilt painted their faces. Some whispered apologies that never reached the air. But the billionaire wasn't finished. He turned toward the janitor, the man who had cleaned these halls for years without being noticed. "What's your name?" he asked. The janitor hesitated, voice low. "Marcus, sir." The billionaire nodded slowly. "Marcus. Starting tomorrow, you don't work for me anymore. You work with me." The hall erupted into murmurs. Marcus blinked, stunned. The billionaire continued, "I'm opening a foundation for children who see the world differently, like my daughter. I want your help. You and your little girl taught me something tonight. That greatness isn't built in boardrooms. It's born in hearts that care." Tears filled Marcus's eyes. He tried to speak, but words failed him. His daughter looked up at him with pride, holding her bracelet, a symbol of a new beginning. The billionaire bent down, meeting the little girl's gaze. "You've already healed something in my daughter no doctor ever could. You reminded me that miracles don't wear lab coats. Sometimes they wear little shoes with holes." The girl smiled shyly. The billionaire's daughter took her hand again. Two children, one hearing, one not, bound by understanding deeper than words. The guests rose to their feet. Applause thundered through the ballroom. But this time, it wasn't for wealth or power. It was for love, for humanity, for the little girl who silenced the world with kindness. As the lights dimmed and the night drew to a close, Marcus lifted his daughter into his arms. She laid her head on his shoulder, tired but smiling. The billionaire walked beside them to the door, no longer as an employer, but as a friend. Before they left, the billionaire looked at the little girl one last time. "You changed my daughter's life tonight," he said. "And in doing so, you changed mine." The camera would fade on that image. A once cold billionaire standing beside a janitor and two little girls, holding hands, the chandelier lights glimmering like stars behind them. Because in a world that measures worth by power and status, sometimes it takes a child with nothing to remind us what truly makes us rich.